Okay, good afternoon, or excuse me, good evening, everyone. So my name is Kian Corbird, and I am the Senior Program Manager of the Donald M. Payne International Development Fellowship. I want to start off by saying thank you all for coming, showing up tonight. I know 6:30 on a Tuesday on a nice day like this is the last thing that anybody wants to do is sit on a webinar, but we are grateful that you guys decided to take this time to meet with us to learn about the Payne Fellowship and how it fits in with your career plans and aligns with your goals and your interests regarding professional development or even just personal interest. I am joined online today by two of our esteemed alum. They're both 2022 Payne Fellows, Varun Thampi and Safia Noel, and they're going to speak to you tonight about their experiences with the Payne Fellowship and how they've adapted to life after grad school, completing the fellowship, and now they are USAID Foreign Service officers. And we're also joined by our program director, Erica Huggins Axum. So on behalf of all of us, thank you all for showing up. So tonight's a little different. We do have a Zoom link, a Zoom meeting. However, we will not be able to see everyone's face. Unfortunately, only the panelists. So if you have any questions, there is a Q&A section on the bottom midsection of the screen. So if you have any questions there, please feel free to type in your questions there. And then one of the panelists or myself will answer the questions, okay? So with that being stated, I'm going to start it off by introducing Safia. Safia, please give them a little bit of information about yourself, your name, where you attended school, and your backstop. And then we'll go to Varun, and then I'm going to lead it off to you guys, okay?
Thank you, Kian. Hi, everyone. Sorry, I'm commuting home. My name is Safia Noel, and I attended Columbia University School of International and Public Affairs. And right now I'm with USAID as a program officer. Happy to be here.
Thank you, Safia. Varun?
Yeah, hi everyone. Varun Thampi. I went to the University of Chicago to do my master's in public policy. Joined the agency along with Safia this July as a humanitarian assistance officer. Over to you, Kian.
Thank you. So we already got some questions now. So what I want to do is I want Safia and to Varun to just detail their experiences first. And then from there, what I'll do is I'll just, read out the questions. Feel free to type in the questions as they're speaking. And what we'll do after they both present, I will read the questions to both of them and they can answer that way, okay? So with that being said, Safia, would you like to start?
Yes, I can. So, sorry, you said just a background.
Just talk about your experience as a Payne Fellow. Start off from the time you found out about the Payne Fellowship when you wanted to apply until right now.
Okay, great. Um, as I said, how I found out about the Payne Fellowship is actually kind of funny. So I was a teacher before I joined the Payne Fellowship. I taught through COVID, and when things started to reopen, I really started to who's been interested in international development, and I thought now that the pandemic is over, get back to that. So I was thinking about a lot of different things: Peace Corps, teaching abroad, and by coincidence, I was on Facebook one day. I have a friend who is a Rangel Fellow. She was doing her tour in the Philippines, and I just saw a bunch of photos, just like in the Philippines, Dubai. She's in Japan. So I messaged her. I said, "Oh my gosh! Like, wait, what are you doing? Like, this job looks amazing." And she told me about the Pickering, Rangel, and Payne Fellowship. Hadn't heard of the Foreign Service until then, but she told me that these programs help to attract young professionals into the Foreign Service and give them an opportunity to really make a difference in international affairs. So after looking through all three of them, I found the Payne Fellowship to be most aligned to my interests. I really wanted to be out on the field, working with health, working with education, and there were literally office positions, related to that, which I thought was absolutely perfect. So I took a chance I applied for the fellowship and I was beyond excited when I got in. And yeah, the as they say, the rest is history. Um, but it was a total alignment of the universe how I came across the fellowship, and I'm still grateful to this day. I did something as simple as reaching out to my friend on Facebook who is part of the larger diplomat community, and I was able to find this.
Thank you, Safia. And I didn't know that, so thank you. Okay. Barone, off to you.
Sure. First of all, just want to say that it's so amazing that Safi and me are here right now because we were in all of your shoes like 3 years ago, feeling the same level of nervousness. So yeah, we're there to support you all. If you all have questions that aren't answered in the webinar, feel free to chat us up. We give our email IDs, and we're happy to connect offline and support you all in whatever way we can. So I spent pretty much all of my life in India, and I was working at that time with UNICEF in their health and nutrition programs. And I knew that I wanted to have a career in international development, and that was because I tried a bunch of different things. I did engineering in my undergrad, and then went on to do management consulting for a while, and kind of kept pivoting until I found this space in international development. I knew I wanted to continue being in this space. I was excited by the opportunity to interact with so many different communities, to travel. And so I knew I wanted to be here. And I knew that most careers in this space require a master's degree. So I was looking for opportunities to do a master's degree, and stumbled across the Payne Fellowship through a WhatsApp forward that one of my mentors at UNICEF, who happened to work with somebody very briefly at USA. And so through that channel, she kind of sent it over to me saying, why don't you have a look? And yeah, like Safia said, rest is history. We were fortunate to be able to get this fellowship. It's a real privilege, and one that we don't take lightly. So I think I'll stop here, Keen, because I think we're seeing a lot of great questions in the chat,
Yeah,
and
don't
we'd
worry.
like to answer all of them.
Sure, no
So,
problem. No
yeah,
problem. Thank you, Safia. Thank you, Farun. Yeah, and just feel free in your responses to expand more on your experiences as well, because this is the Life as a Payne Fellow. So this isn't a
sure.
Q&A session. This is about, once you apply to be a Payne Fellow, and if you are selected, we want to know about that. So you and Safia's stories are, impactful because you guys have lived as a Payne Fellow, and now you guys are living as Foreign Service officers. So we don't want to diminish that either. So
Sure. I mean, happy to talk about that if you'd like.
I will, yes, please.
Okay. So I could start. I think life as a Payne Fellow is really incredible, and there are two different sides that you get to see. One is when you're in grad school, and the second is the transition from a Payne Fellow to a Payne alum, which is crazy to think that we're Payne alums right now. But and as a Payne alum, you're also a foreign service officer, and both those lives are so interesting and so different. As a Payne Fellow, when you're in grad school, it's hustling, managing to finish the assignments in time, and doing all of that, while also having these unique opportunities for internships that a lot of your classmates probably wouldn't have. So, for example, I had the incredible opportunity to go to the Office of Africa, the Office of Kenya, and got to work on some really incredible stuff over there in the summer between my master's program. Safia can talk about her experience as well, but that was really incredible because got to go on the field, got to interact with communities firsthand, got to do some really cool work, and then came back to grad school, figured out courses that best aligned with what I wanted to do as a foreign service officer. Joined the agency this year, and right now a lot of my work is around preparing sort of senior management with the resources they need to be able to represent BHA at COP29. So doing a lot of like climate adaptation work, which is new to me, but it's exciting because I'm getting to learn. Yeah, so a lot of talking points, briefers, memos, that kind of stuff. So yeah, two very different worlds, and excited to elaborate, like happy to elaborate on both of them. But I think for now I'll turn it over to Safia.
Thank you, Varun. Safia?
Thank you. Just to echo what Varun, or as a Payne Fellow, you have those two time periods, one of grad school and even a little bit before grad school, doing your internship on the Hill, and then when you kind of transition to alum and official USAID. So in my case, the summer before, I was able to learn about Capitol Hill, interning with Congressman Richie Torres. And then the summer in between my first and second year at Columbia, I was able to intern at USAID West Africa, which is a regional mission, which was a really cool perspective because you get to see how regional missions support multiple countries in an area, in addition to the bilateral, which is, just between the US and that country. So that was a really great experience. I got to work with the Economic Growth Office and do like site visits in Cameroon, which was truly amazing, and really learn about my work as a program officer dealing with strategic planning, budgeting, and monitoring and evaluation. And while I was in grad school, the Payne Fellowship really gave me an opportunity. The unique thing about SEPA is I was able to get that degree in public administration, but still get an international focus. So I thought that was really unique about Columbia's curriculum, that the MPA is very similar to MIA, just, slight variations. And now, being a Payne alum, which, as Varun said, feels kind of crazy, I'm able to continue that work as a program officer right now, working with the policy implementation and analytics division, helping. Well, right now we're helping like revise a nutrition strategy, and we're working on country strategy development. So, yeah, in life as a Payne Fellow, it's never boring. And they definitely get you on the ground running, like right off the bat. So
Thank you. So you also, Safia and Varun, thank you. Thank you for expanding a little bit more on you guys' experiences. And again, I have some questions for you all. So you can still use your experience and just your knowledge to, answer the questions to tell the audience. But I do see a question regarding this. It says, is there any additional coursework needed to be during your Payne Fellowship? The answer is no. So we, the Payne Fellowship, we do not have any homework assignments or coursework for you. However, there are tasks that you need to do throughout your time as a fellow because you have to receive a medical and security clearance with USAID. You must also have a valid passport so that way you can get your visa for the second summer internship or second summer placement, I should say, when you are at a USAID mission abroad. So, you will receive emails from USAID and from the Payne Fellowship staff asking you to complete tasks, but these are not last minute tasks. These are tasks that you're well aware of. We tell you from the time you start orientation, and we send you periodic emails. USAID sends you periodic emails, and it is your responsibility to make sure that you complete those tasks as soon as possible in order to not to delay any clearances or statuses that you may need for your career in a USAID foreign service. Okay. So the first question I want to pose to you and Safia is, were you accepted as a Payne Fellow on your first try? If so, what tips do you have to make application stand out? So I'll start with you, Varun.
Sure. Thanks, Kian. I can also take two questions together. So that's that question as well as there was another. I mean, the first question on the chat was whether we had a program fully funded between Payne and the university, or did we need to find?
I was going to bunch them together, but you can answer it that way. That's fine.
I'll bunch it together. So for me, I didn't have to find outside funding. I was able to I was able to manage both just with the amount that Payne gave as well as my university. Second, I think it's a very interesting question on the tips that we'd have to make our application stand out. So I was accepted as fellow on the first try, and I think if I were to think through this question, I'd give three suggestions, which could be helpful for you all to think through as you all walk through your application. So, first is, why do you want to have a career in service? The second is, why international development? Because you can serve in so many different ways, right? And then the third is, why USAID specifically? Because in international development, there's so many different components, there's so many different players involved. There are the UN agencies, there are big NGOs, there are local organizations. So why USAID specifically? So I think like these three questions can help you think through think through this question, because I think like as folks who are I think something that's pretty important is that we're looking to see if this isn't just an interest of yours. It's something that you'd like to have a career in, right? Because you could be super interested about something, but do you really want to commit to making this your life, essentially, right? Being a foreign service officer with USAID, a lot of sacrifices involved, but at the same time, it can be very rewarding as well. And so I think that's something that folks are really looking to see, whether you are clear in your mind that this is the right path for you. I think these three questions can help you think through that. So I think I'll stop here and hand it over to Safia.
There's a specific question I want to direct to Safia. So someone in the chat posted, Safia, they said, what was your experience like as a Black woman focusing in international strategy, development, and policy? Were there any difficulties for you?
Oh, wow, that's a really good question. um, I would say in the strategy, there there's a lot of people that look like me in the meeting room. When I was in USA East Africa, that was a little bit different, just given the demographics of the country. And, when you go to post, you meet foreign service nationals. And so, but on the DC side, one tip I would have with navigating that is, I'm so sorry. Sorry, exactly. One tip I would have for that is don't let that stress you out. Don't let that stress you out. I think one thing that really helped me with the Payne Fellowship was it helped me get over imposter syndrome, which is a feeling that could really come up when you're the only Black woman in the meeting room. And when I first came into the fellowship, I was a teacher from New York. I didn't speak multiple languages. I didn't have too much international experience. But what I knew is that this was something I was passionate about. This was something that I wanted to do, and I could learn, I can grow. And that is the mindset that I take into those meeting rooms. And you'll find that as you get more acquainted with USAID, as you get more acquainted with the policies and processes, you will be able to go into those spaces with a lot of confidence, and people will listen. people will listen. I think that the space in USA has definitely shifted dramatically as far as not only increasing diversity, but making sure it's not just only for show. Like, we're putting all this diversity in the room, but we're also giving those groups the space to be heard, to be leaders, and to really be at the forefront of making a difference. So, what I will say in short is that the culture of USA has changed dramatically. It still is changing, and I know as a Black woman, I gained a lot of confidence through the fellowship, even before entering the space. But it is something that you will face. In all honesty, it is something that you will still face, but it's not something to be stressed about. I hope that answers your question.
Think it did. Thank you. And speaking of foreign language, that you touched on that a little bit, Safia. This is a question for you and Varun, actually. Do you have to have a foreign language requirement or have some extent of skills in a foreign language by the time you graduate from grad school and onboard to USAID?
So short answer is no.
Okay.
Yeah, short. Yeah, just like Vern said, short answer is no. Once you know where you're going, they'll help you with language training. And, just because you know a certain language, that doesn't mean you'll get posted there. So you can be fluent in Spanish, and guess what? They're sending you to Senegal. So you're going to have to go learn French. And everyone passes language training. It's a tough time, but everyone, but everybody passes. They will get you to proficient.
Okay, thank you. A next question I want to pose to both of you actually. I know you guys is familial background, but you share this, it's on you. But someone asked, I am a US citizen, but they hold dual citizenship as their mothers from Austria. Will this interfere with their security clearance while they're trying to become a foreign service officer?
That's a good question. So I can like start. I'm not like the expert on this, but I can just talk from my advice, like from my experience, and Safia can also add to this. So based on what I have understood is that as long as you're a US citizen, you're good to go. For me, the security clearance process took a really long time because when you've got to do the security clearance, you've got to list down your foreign contacts. And that was pretty much everybody in my life because my family still stays in India. I have friends there and so on and so forth. So it took longer, but I still ended up getting it. So I don't think you would face those issues. But that's just like my perspective. Not 100% sure. At least like our experience with going through security clearance is it's kind of like a black box, and we don't really know what's going on. But yeah, so I think that's all I can say for now.
Yeah, like Varun, a I'm not an expert in this area either. I do know that the requirement is that you have that U.S. citizenship. Um, and in networking with other officers, FSOs, I believe that I've met some who have dual citizenship, and I don't, I agree with Varun. I don't think it hinders. I think, security clearance, you just have to be honest, like where your family is from, but yeah, they'll ask like a bunch of questions about your background and security clearance. So I don't think it's an issue.
I can add that we've had Payne Fellows in the past who were dual citizens. So for the person who asked that question about their dual citizenship interfering, I know that we've had several Payne Fellows in the past who were dual citizens. Now, I don't know if there was a conversation that they had with USAID once they onboarded or prior to them onboarding, but you being a dual citizen will not prevent you from being a Payne Fellow. I would say, if anything, just make sure you include that on your application. And I'm pretty sure that's a question they'll ask you in the initial stages of your application process. So do that. But other than that, as long as you're a US citizen, as Varun and Safia said, and according to our website as well, you'll be fine. You can apply for the fellowship. Okay. So the next question I want to pose to both of you is, oh, we already answered that. Okay. So someone wanted to know, what is life like as a program officer? So I think, Varun, that's more for you.
All right, I think it's me, program officer.
That's
Oh,
what
no, you
Safia.
are, but no,
Humanitarian.
oh,
Yeah.
you are. I'm so sorry, Safia. Okay, you are.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I'm program officer. You're totally fine. Program officer, I like it because it provides an overview of all the technical areas. So, using like USA jargon, technical areas are the subject specific backstop. So, environment, agriculture, health, education, humanitarian assistance, all of those people who are creating the activities and designs in country. So I have multiple subject interests, and program officer gives me the chance to examine all of them. It can be a bit on the paperwork side. That's the con. You don't get as much time out in the field. Like, you have to be very intentional about carving out that time, because as a program officer, you are often the connection, whether it's the connection between the health team and the mission director and DC to this office. Like, you're the person that is providing the communications, the connections, building those bridges. And that's why a lot of our work ends up being around strategic planning, doing the budgeting, doing the evaluation, because it's all of that oversight. So depending on how you feel about organizing, managing, we're often tapped for the management position. But depending on how you feel about those responsibilities, it can be great, and it can be a great introduction. For me personally, I thought it was a good introduction to the USAID structure. But it ultimately comes down to what works for you. But as a program officer, I feel like that's what it provided.
Thank you, Safia and Varun. I'm going to ask you to, expand, talk a little bit about your backstop and what you guys do as well.
Sure. So my backstop is humanitarian assistance, and our role is around saving lives. So immediate response once a crisis hits, say it's a natural disaster, there's a conflict. It's about coordinating with partners who are boots on the ground, delivering that immediate nutrition assistance, health assistance, so on and so forth. So that's one mandate that we have. The other mandate is around sort of reducing the impacts of these crises, because even if it's a natural disaster, ultimately, whether people are able to respond, like whether people on the ground, communities are able to recover, it really depends on how resilient they are. And so a lot of our role is around building that resiliency and reducing vulnerability. So that includes programs like disaster risk reduction, where we look at stuff like livelihood support for communities that are just hit from a disaster. How can they bounce back to pre-disaster times, or even better? So that's one example. We also look at stuff like early warning systems, so that folks on the ground are able to know when a disaster is going to strike, and they can prepare accordingly. So those are the two mandates that we have: save lives and sort of improve the resiliency of people. And yeah, so I think that's broadly what my backstop does. So we look at like immediate stuff, crisis hits, how do we respond, how do we save lives? And we look at sort of longer term programming, which is centered around building resilience for these communities.
Okay, thank you guys. So another question I have is I'm going to combine these two questions. They're very similar. So you guys spoke about your backstops already. So what they want to know in the chat is, can you talk about, why you chose that backstop, and was there any sacrifices or any unexpected things you had to learn in order to pursue the backstop that you're currently in? If I can clarify if you want me to. Okay, so for example, Safia, I know you're a program officer now, but I know originally you wanted to be an education officer. So what made you decide to change your backstop from education to program officer? And were there any additional skills or qualities that you guys had to learn or enhance to prepare for your backstop in USAID?
Okay, yeah, that makes more sense. I applied to be
I'm just reading the
education
questions.
officer.
I'm sorry.
No, you're right. Yeah, so as far as what made me make the switch, like I said before, I have multiple subject interests. So because I was like, oh, teacher, this is a chance to kind of move to education policy. But then I thought, I always loved the idea of public health. I never got a chance to really work with it, and this could be my chance to work with health. But oh my gosh, I love climate change. I love learning about the environment too, and humanitarian assistance, like Varun's job. That sounds like so much fun. Emergency, like all of that. So I can't be four technical officers at once, and so that's when I realized, okay, I want to be programmed, because that is the closest I can be to working with all the technical teams. Executive officer, contracting, legal, those are much more removed. And program office is right in the middle. So that's what made me choose it. As far as sacrifices, I sacrificed the fun of technical offices. Like I said, you kind of have to carve out time as a program officer to get out on the field. Whereas, Varun's position, his job is on the field. Like when he goes to post, that's what he's going to be doing a lot of. So I kind of had to sacrifice that a little bit. I had to get involved with finances. I don't like budgeting. I'd hire an accountant if I could. I don't like numbers. I don't like math. So I'm learning that. And I can't. But on the other end, I've been enhancing my skills in public speaking. I enjoy doing that a lot. And I like organizing things. And so program officer appeals to that. So some skills have been enhanced. But I say those are the big sacrifices that I've had to make to join the program office.
Okay, thank you. Varun?
Yeah, I mean, not much to add to that. Safia kind of said it super well, better than I could. But I had initially wanted to do program. And then I kind of transitioned to humanitarian assistance for the reasons Safia outlined, where I thought at that time it'll be more connected to the ground, and I'll be able to go to the field a lot more. And I thought that would connect me to the work I was doing. So I made that switch at that time. But again, like everything is super context dependent. Even though I'm humanitarian assistance, a lot of what USAID does is essentially paperwork, a lot of it. So we write out and give these awards to implementing partners who are the actual boots on the ground. And so a lot of it is coordinating with them. There are certain areas where US personnel can't actually visit because of security threats. And so in that case, it is working remotely, and it is what it is. So I thought that I'd like to be in a role that I could, at least as much as I can, be able to travel to the field, be able to look at our programs firsthand, and then review. And so that's why I made that switch. What I do think is kind of helpful to point out is that once we go through a process of tenure where we spend about um, 4 years or so in the agency, and once we're tenured foreign service officers, we do get to bid on other positions that are outside of our backstop. A tiny caveat to that is that it has to be kind of in the realm of exposure. So, for example, if I've done humanitarian assistance for like 4 years, it'd be very difficult for me to switch to like contracting or education. Whereas because Safia is program and she's able to touch upon these different areas of work in her time, whether it's health or education or so on. So she could then switch into an education officer, for example, once she gets tenure. So so that possibility is there. It's not a hard and fast that if you choose a certain backstop right now, that's the backstop that you'll end your life with. It's not like that. So I'll pause over here for now.
Thank you all. So I have another question for you that I'm going to bunch in together. So you completed a second summer placement internship at a USAID mission abroad. Um, Safia, you were in West Africa. I believe you were stationed in Accra, right? Was that your main? Okay, and Varun, you were in Kenya. You were in Nairobi, right? Okay, I remember. It was only last year. But however, so you guys were both there. So since you guys are both working in developing countries, of course, as USAID foreign service officers, and you've done so already in your second summer internships, do you feel that USAID is acting as a savior complex? If you don't think so, what differentiate them from, those mission trips that we hear about that are savior complexes? And do you think that the people in those countries are welcoming to USAID and foreign service officers?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Who do you want to take first? Like, which should we?
Anyone who want to answer that, tackle that question first? I know it's a lot. These are good questions. So yeah.
Very good question. I don't know, Safi, do you want to go first? Or do you want me to?
Yeah. There's a bunch of questions in there. So I don't think that USAID has a savior complex. And I say that what makes it a little bit different is, and this is interesting, I was just talking with a colleague about this. USAID, we put a heavy focus, especially recently, on localization and building local capacity. And I think that's what makes us a little bit different from some other organizations that go to developing nations. Their approach can very much be, okay, you need your roads fixed. Short-term solution, great. We're gonna just bring in a bunch of money, bring in our own labor force, we'll build these roads for you. Great. Who's gonna maintain the roads? You've done this for a few years and then you've gone and left. So now, if we don't have the skill training, we don't have the workforce, what are we going to do? We're going to call you guys back and ask you to come back and fix it up again or maintain it. And I think USAID tries to set itself apart in not creating that kind of dependent relationship. Yes, it's going to take a little bit longer to get that road built for you, but it is because we're putting the investment in the community and making sure we're working with implementing partners, local partners, to build, like to build it within, so that once this road is built, you don't have to come back to us. You know, I think everyone who works at USAID dreams of getting to the point. I mean, nobody wants to be unemployed, but that is the attitude that we come in with. That hopefully one day it's like, yeah, we just get rid of us. But that is how we approach our work. That we not only, it's going to take a little bit longer, but we want to help you not only build it up yourselves, but to maintain it, to continue it, to create that self-sustainability. And I think because of that, the community can be very welcoming. And you know, when I was in Accra, you know, it's not to say that there aren't like points of tension. You know, there can be cultural clashes. Case in point, you know, being in Accra, Pride Month is not that popular, you know, throughout all of West Africa, but it is something that is promoted here in the US. So it's not to say that those points in conversation don't happen when we're trying to do policies, strategies, create programming. How can we balance the cultural context, the social context? Because we don't just want to come in and be like, well, it's the US way or the highway. No, we don't want to come in that way. But at the same time, we do want to make you aware that this is a marginalized group, that we do have these children that are being forced into marriage. We do have this high level of malnutrition going on in the community. So let's work together on this. So that would be my answer in what sets us apart. And I think I really got to see that a lot in West Africa regional, especially because a lot of those countries don't have full missions. I think maybe like Nigeria is the only one in the region that is like fully staffed, is like fully ready to go. Most of those countries in West Africa, they're a lot smaller and they just have country representatives. So West Africa regional does have to take on a lot of support for those countries. So that's what I would say about my experience. But Varun?
Yeah, I think Safia made such an incredible point. I just like to compliment what she's saying. So at USAID, we have a saying, nothing about us without us. And so that's kind of centering a lot of localization work that we do, where we're putting a strong focus on locally led initiatives and sort of reshaping the power dynamic that exists. So that's a focus that we have. That's a goal that we're striving towards. But I will say this, that inherently there are power imbalances in the international development system. And USAID is, sorry, not you, the US government is a big player in that system, right? We're one of the biggest donors. Mm-hmm. And these systems have power imbalances, and that's the reality of it. So I really appreciate the direction that we're heading in. I appreciate the targets that we're laying out for ourselves. But the reality is that we are currently in a system where accountability to affected populations is low. And we're heading in the right direction. And I think that the Payne Fellowship, where we're bringing in diversity and bringing in diverse perspectives to these decision rooms and to these meeting rooms, is so critical, because you want to get that diverse experience, especially when you're making these big decisions. And I think more important than us is also having local partners play a big role, right? Because they're the best folks who know the situation on the ground. It's their own communities. And so strong direction that we're heading in, but the system has imbalances, and it's a tough nut to crack, but I think we're making a little bit of progress. In terms of my experiences as an intern in Kenya, Yeah, I think the only way to counter this whole impression of uh, saviorism is to be on the field more, to make these visits, to understand what's going on, understand how can we best support, because ultimately we're supporting, we're not directing communities. And so it becomes so important to do that. And the reality is that we don't do it as often as we should. And so, yeah, so I think I'll pause there. Just to say that number one, I think it's a great question. Number two, we're heading in the right direction, but inherently the system is set up in a way that there are inherent power imbalances where that we need to be conscious of. And you'll see it in the field as well.
Thank you both. And I thought that was a really good question too. As both of you are people of color. You're definitely been historically underserved and underrepresented in the USAID Foreign Service or even in the United States government in general. So you guys, I think you answering that question is very impactful because I do think that when people think of the United States doing foreign service or any type of goodwill that's outside of, international development or international relations, people look at it like, okay, that's great, but you must be trying to, atone for some of the past things that the United States government has done or been accused of. So it's good that you two found USAID to be like, okay, I felt comfortable working here and carrying out the mission of this agency, and it doesn't, compromise my morals or my beliefs. So
Yeah, I just want to add one more thing, Kian, now that you said that. Is that okay?
yes, of course, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say that it's on us uh, as people of color and also as foreign service officers to continuously advocate for stuff like this, because a lot of times I have heard conversations in the agency about how, oh no, stuff doesn't align with national security priorities, and so that's paramount. Um, and and so I think it's up to us to really be able to advocate for stuff like this and to be able to champion stuff like this. And it goes back to what Safia said early on in the discussion, where sometimes you would be in situations where you're the only person of color in the room. And so it's not the best move to stay quiet. It's the best move to advocate.
Sounds good. I like that. Yeah. Closed mouths don't get fed, right? So I do have another question. I'm combining the questions, just in the interest of time, but I also
Mm-hmm.
think you guys' answers are more impactful when I do combine it because you guys sit on so many different topics. So this one is regarding back to your second summer internship because that was your first, I guess, official assignment under USAID. So when it comes to when it came to your first summer assignment or your summer assignment abroad, excuse me, how much time did you spend interacting with the local people in that country, outside of the mission and inside of the mission? And also, did you feel that, your ideas or anything you had to say, were people paying attention to it? Were they open to your ideas? Or was it more, you're a fellow, you're not a foreign service officer yet, so they were dismissive? What would you guys say your experiences were, your respective experiences?
So, Kian, could I ask a clarifying question?
Sure, go ahead.
So, is this referring to um, the communities that we serve? Is this referring to the folks within
I
USA?
would
Or is
I
this
would say
referring to...
the first part of the question about your interaction is more with people outside of the mission. So that will be,
Okay,
it could be other, people that may work for other countries, agencies or NGOs, but also could be the local population as well, people
okay,
that
cool.
you're interacting with. And then the second part of the question was dealing more with, your colleagues at USAID.
Gotcha.
So that being said, you want to go first, Varun or Safia?
Farouk
Well,
can go first. Farouk can go.
okay. So I think in terms of my experience with interacting with folks within USAID or the US Embassy, I'd say it kind of depends mission to mission, like internship to internship. I had gone to a big mission, and so uh, because of that, my interaction was pretty much just within BHA, the Bureau for Humanitarian Assistance, and so I was just like mostly interacting with those folks. Um, Number two, in terms of my interaction with like local communities, um, again, I think like for me, the the closest mentors that I made over there were like foreign service nationals working in the US Embassy. Still close to a lot of those folks. They've been super awesome in terms of my whole experience over there. They really took me under their wing and kind of guided me and mentored me and all of that. It was lovely. Other than that, I think like so I was in a place where a bunch of different folks from my university were also in Kenya at the same time and in like working in different places. So I think most of my social interactions were with them mostly. And so we'd go for like we'd go out together, we'd go for safaris, we'd do all of those things together. So I think my interactions like socially were mostly with those folks from my university. In terms of my interactions with like the communities that we serve through our assistance programs, um, got to go on the field a couple of times for these short visits, like go for a week, come back, go for 2 weeks, come back. And it's always like supporting folks that are already going out there to monitor and to review and so on and so forth. So I think I'll pause here, but does that answer the question, Kian? I'm not sure if that was what you were
For the
asking.
third part, yes, about your interactions, but your second part, when it came to, your colleagues at USAID, did they take any
Ah,
anything?
yeah, okay, got it. So here's the thing. I feel that it took a while for me to be able to fit in professionally, to be very honest, because I was the youngest person over there in the mission, not in the mission, in like in the BHA office. So it took me a couple of weeks to kind of set in, talk to a couple of folks, so on and so forth. And I think it was only to the mid onwards of my internship was when I think got to do some pretty awesome work that I kind of advocated for. Um, and that was really great. Like, but it did take a while for me to be able to um, be heard, to be very honest, because it's like you go into a mission, everybody doesn't, I mean, they have their own programs going on, they have their own lives, they have their own jobs, and it's about just because one fellow comes in, they're not going to like pivot their entire day jobs, right? So it's all about how can you kind of position yourself as someone who is number one, willing to support in whatever way you can, and also bounce off a couple of ideas. And if one of those ideas stick, then it's about really advocating for yourself to be able to say like, listen, these are the resources I need to be able to set myself up for success. I need you to have these weekly check-ins with me. I need you to connect me with XYZ partners so that I can get this information and be able to constantly do that. And I think by the end, I was very, very happy with the kind of work I was doing, and it was received very well as well. I got to build a supply chain um, dashboard for South Sudan. So this was like mapping all of the different nutrition sites, the different warehouses to pre-position food and nutrition commodities. So it was doing like a GIS dashboard for all of that, and it challenged me a lot, and at the end, I think I was able to deliver it and do it well. But it took a while, so I'll pause there.
Yeah. So for me, definitely it was a huge benefit to have West Africa Regional in Accra. And for a couple of reasons. One, like, I don't know if anyone's been to Ghana, like Ghanaians are just very friendly. That's the first thing. This is very friendly people in general. But Ghana is like a pretty big tourist spot. So when I told people that I was going to Ghana, like almost everyone I came across, they were like, "Oh my gosh, like I know someone who has a house out there," or "I was like there like last year. Like, let me put you in touch with this person." So that was a huge advantage in being able to have friends outside of the embassy, like locals outside the embassy. And then like Varun, I was connected with a couple university students who were also doing their internship in Ghana. So I was able to meet up with them as well. Um, and yeah, I mean, even within the embassy, everyone was super friendly. And yeah, I got to hang out with a lot of people. As far as, so I think also, as far as me being heard, like my ideas and projects and stuff, again, it was an advantageous position, um, because, and this is just a general tip for when you join the Foreign Service and when you go to post and stuff like that, no matter how far along, no matter what your title is, the FSNs, the Foreign Service Nationals, no more. Like, these people have been working on activities and projects in USAID for years. Moreover, they live in that country. Like, the paperwork that we're looking at from this vantage point from DC to a national, that is exactly what their friend was going through. Or this is the exact situation their cousin was in at one point. Like, they're much closer to the issues. And so you can be the mission director of a post, but you should always have that deference to Foreign Service nationals. So I think that attitude helped me in the beginning, coming in and just talking to them, like, what are you doing? Like, I want to know what you're doing, because you guys really have the subject expertise and I want to learn from you. And, like Varun said, as you kind of interact more, as you talk more, then it's like your name starts to get remembered. Then your name starts to get dropped in meetings. And then suddenly you're being handed things. And it was unique in that I had a really good supervisor when I came to Ghana. She kind of had all these ideas of things that she wanted me to work on, and she was really great about pulling me into meetings with the mission director, with the deputy, and like emphasizing she's a program officer, give her these things. But like right now in my time in DC, I had to find my way because my office has a lot of people rotating in and out. Like when I came on, it was kind of a lull period. It was like people getting back from vacation and supervisors out on details. And so, like Varun said, it was very much a situation where it's like, okay, we have this new person. I have work I have to do. And, while I know you're here, I'm not going to think to give you half of my portfolio or half of my projects. You have to plant that seed in my mind. So I think, yeah, just to echo what Varun said, like it can take time, but yeah, my big tip is talk to the FSN, talk to the nationals as much as you can, even within the embassy. Like, yeah, even if you're not comfortable maybe going out with them after work, get lunch with them and ask about their work and stuff like that. And yeah, I'll pause there.
Thank you. Real quick, this could just be a one sentence answer, but someone did ask, because you guys have mentioned it multiple times. So since you guys are saying you the embassy. So you do interact with the State Department and their FSOs while you guys are abroad. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
You do.
Thank okay.
So the only time I did was when I was traveling with somebody who was dealing with who was part of the State Department's PRM, like Population Refugee Migration. So because we had gone for a TDY together, but otherwise not as much. So it kind of depends on the context. Like
That is true.
I
Like
would say
being program
always.
office, I had a bit more FaceTime.
Yeah,
State.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so we're coming to an end. So before we go out, we have two more questions, and then Erica wants to say something. So I'll since I've been doing a lot of career stuff, this is probably the last one. At what point do you have to stick to the backstop that you've chosen? So you guys, you're humanitarian assistants, you're a program officer. When did you guys choose your backstop that you currently have, and do you plan on staying in that backstop?
So during the Payne Fellowship, you can change it. The difficulty around it, and because I there's some people in the fellowship who have changed their backstops in the middle of grad school. However, and it says this on the website, your coursework needs to match what you chosen for your backstop. So halfway through, if I decide to choose health, like that's a tough position because MPH has a whole nother set of curriculum and classes and stuff. So, and you do have that time. You have that time in the summer before, and depending on your program, even the first semester, because first semester is a lot of
It is.
introductory classes. So you have a little bit of time. But I would say as a recommendation, after that first semester of after like halfway through that first year of grad school, you want to be pretty set with your backstop because it's kind of like kind of like changing your undergrad major junior year. It's like unless it's something very similar where the coursework can match. So yeah, if you ever get to that place of changing, talk with Kian, Eureka, like they're all really great. And the website is very helpful. It tells you what degrees correspond to each backstop. And so
Thank you. Varun, you want to add to that or?
No, honestly, I think Safia answered all that I could. I'll just say that if any of y'all have more questions, please reach out to us. We're happy to support in whatever way we can. One of my closest, a very good friend of mine in USAID is, our friendship all started because I kind of reached out to her. I saw her on one of these webinars. I reached out to her and was like, listen, can you help me think through a couple of things? And we became close since then. So we're there for you all. If you all need anything, please don't hesitate to reach out. We're there to, we're so grateful for this fellowship, and we want to do whatever we can to get the next gen inside and to represent diversity in the foreign service.
Thank you. And you guys, your first year of FSO, so do you know your first assignment and when you'll be going over there or not yet?
Ooh,
Not yet.
no, no.
we're begging our coordinators to tell
Yeah.
us something. They're not telling us anything.
Yeah, like fingers crossed, should get to know before the end of the year is what
I
I've
mean, we
been
can
told.
say like what regions we're interested in if that helps, but
Yeah,
Okay.
but they haven't told us anything.
Okay. Also, okay, no problem. Okay, well, thank you all. And Erica, would you like to say something?
Good afternoon, everyone. I've been listening in the background. I'm enjoying this conversation. Hello to those of you who have joined us too. I just want to thank Safia and Varun. You all were the first cohort of Payne Fellows for me. So you have a dear spot in my heart. Thank you. We're very proud of you. for those of you who are thinking about applying for the Payne Fellowship, imagine when you get the fellowship, you're going to join a family of Payne Fellows like Safia and Varun, and they're always, always willing to come back and help and support and be an inspiration. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you. I love you guys so much. Keep continuing to make us proud. All right. And best of luck to everybody who's applying. Over to you, Kian.
Okay, thank you. Again, thank you everybody for joining. So if you look into the chat, you should see Safia and Varun's email. They've been very kind to, tell you to reach out to them if you have any questions. If you want to know more about their experiences as a Foreign Service officer, as well as a Payne Fellow alum. Our email, of course, is paynefellows@howard.edu. If you have any questions regarding the application process or the program itself. If you want to share this webinar or tonight's meeting with any of your friends, please tell them to go visit our YouTube page. Just type in Payne Fellows YouTube, and you'll see all of our recorded webinars from this whole series. We've had webinars regarding technical assistance on the application. Tonight is Life as a Payne Fellow, of course. And we've also had on the university affiliates and any tips on making your application stronger. So please feel free to check that out. And again, thank you, Varun. Thank you, Safia. I really do appreciate it. You guys were the first cohort that I came on board with, and now you guys are whole FSOs. It's amazing. So thank you all.
We love you guys.
Yes, we love you so much, and
Love you
hope
too.
to see you in the Payne family.
All right.
Take care,
Good
everyone.
luck to everybody who's applied. Take care. Bye, Safia and Varun. Keep
Bye.
well.
Yes,
See you
you
soon.
too.
Thank you so much,
Take care.
Kian.
Thank you for being our champion.
Of course.
Always, you all are great people.